who do you think you are, you know? And the most recent one, on the other hand, on Amazon.ca for my book on addiction, is a guy gave it 5 stars out of 5. And he said, my wife is a fan of this man. Happy wife, happy life. And that's his book review. I want to say, that's not a book review. That's a wife review. But I think what we both agree on is the message of a song I'd like to play for you now. And I do lead retreats and seminars sometimes, and invariably I begin my sessions with this particular song. And I give this particular guarantee, and I give it to you tonight as well. If you hear this song, and if you totally get it, you'll have a perfectly powerful, happy, centered, grounded life. You don't have to listen to this. You just have to get what this song is saying. And the song is by my guru, Johnny Cash. And it's called in your mind. That's what the song is called. And you may not distinguish all the lyrics, but listen to the refrain. And I think Diederik and I will both agree that it all goes down in your mind. He says, in your mind, it all goes down in your mind. One foot on Jacob's ladder, another in the fire. Jacob's ladder, of course, is the biblical ascent to heaven. One foot in the fire, of course, is hell. And you could be in heaven, and you could be in hell. And it all goes down in your mind. And whenever we think that it's because of the outside, we don't know who we are. We think that something's happening. So let me return to Air Canada with that in mind. So I'm arriving from Philadelphia back in June, after a long series of flights and talking engagements and seminars. And this one went really well, standing ovation, people engaged, lots of questions, a lot of gratitude. And I'm coming home, and I was even upgraded to first class on the way back. I'm comfortable, and I'm thinking, wow, I finally got it. My life is working. I understand it all. I can teach it all. Wonderful. This is who I think I am, this guy who's got it. The plane lands, and I receive a text message from my wife, Ray, saying, who was supposed to pick me up at the airport. She's saying, sorry, I haven't at home yet. Do you still want me to come? So immediately I'm seized by rage. And I send a very short email saying, text saying, never mind, or something like that. And I take a cab. Finally, he's got it. It's working, it's smooth, the road is now clear. The next minute, what am I angry about? The fact that I have to take a taxi home? I can't get into a taxi. At age 71, I can't get into a taxi and go home. I think I am a child being abandoned by my mother. And hence the rage of abandonment, of being let down. No, I don't think that consciously. If I thought it consciously, that'd be no problem. Then I could say to myself, hey, I'm thinking I'm a baby again. But actually, I'm not actually a baby. That's an interesting thought, but I don't have to listen to it. So in this conversation that I'm having with you, when I say, who do I think I am, or who do we think we are, I'm not so much talking about the conscious thoughts that we have, but the unconscious beliefs underneath those thoughts. But those are thoughts as well, except they're not arising to the surface. If only they did. If only I could say to myself, my God, here I'm thinking I'm a baby again. But no, that doesn't happen. Instead, the emotion happens that the baby would feel on being abandoned, which is the tension, the anxiety, and then, of course, the anger. So the question, who do I think I am? If you ask most people, I once participated in a seminar in which there's the formal question, who are you? And people say, I'm a soul waiting to be born. And that's the standard answer that's expected to be given. And there's truth in that. It's not that it's not true. It's only that, at least for me, and I'm not saying for the others who say that, I'm a soul waiting to be born, that might be really who they always think they are, and it just works. It's not fixed in stone. It's a process. It's an ongoing flow of beliefs that arise from somewhere, and it's based on those beliefs that we act or react. And that's why, cash things, it all goes down in your mind. And it's what Buddha said as well. With our thoughts we create the world. But as much as with our conscious thought we create the world, even more with our unconscious thoughts we create the world. And so, how do you get at that? If it's unconscious, how do you get at it? And no amount of affirmations will ever penetrate to the unconscious beliefs. That's why forms of therapy that it's not so easy to see in the case of yourself. Take an obvious example, such as Donald Trump, who these days presents himself as a case study in separation from the self. If you ask him who he thinks he is, he will tell you that he's a successful businessman, a savvy negotiator, a confident speaker, just the kind of guy to lead the United States in this uncertain century. That's who he thinks he is on the conscious level. And he's fully confident that he's that person. But do something. Next time you see him or somebody else like him speak on the television, turn off the sound and look at his face. And then who are you going to see? You're going to see somebody who's puffed up, who's hiding from something, who's very angry about something that he doesn't know what it is, that actually was quite scared. I remember being in Toronto. I'm going to speak up, is that it? Okay. I remember being in Toronto back in 2004, I think, when my book When the Body Says No was published, and it was just on the eve of the bombing of, or 2003, I forget which year. It was on the eve of the bombing of Iraq by the Americans, just before the Iraq invasion began. And President George Bush was on television, sounding confident and convinced that this is the right thing to do and that we'll win and all this kind of stuff. And I actually did turn off the sound. And who did I see? I saw a guy whose brows were furrowed, who was completely uncertain about himself. I saw a scared little kid. So while on the conscious level, he may truly believe that he's the leader of the free world, which of course implies a whole set of assumptions. One is that there's a free world, and two, that he's the leader of it. But underneath it, there was nothing but fear. And you could see this in our previous Prime Minister. When I went around the country during the Harper era, which lasted way too long, for the country's own good, I would ask people, what do you see in his eyes? And people would say, nothing. they'd say those eyes are empty. Well, why do eyes empty? Why does a person see nothing? Only for one reason. Because when they were vulnerable and helpless, they couldn't bear what they saw. That was a deeply traumatized man. But he didn't know that. And so, when he saw vulnerability, he couldn't stand it. He had to attack it everywhere. Hence his aggression. Hence his hostility towards addicts. Hence his hostility towards native people. Anybody who's vulnerable. Veterans who were suffering from PTSD. He couldn't abide anyone who was vulnerable because he was so scared of his own vulnerability, because when he was vulnerable, he suffered so much. And we know something about the childhoods of these people. So I mention these politicians not to point fingers at them, but to give them as very clear examples of people who, on one level, they think they are something or somebody, but who they're being, who they're actually being, is reflective of a set of self-beliefs on a completely different level. And that's what I'm trying to get at here, is who do we think we are? And that question of who we think we are is the most important question. Well, I don't want to say that. I don't know what the most important question is. Who do I think I am when I say I know what I think? It's a very important question. And it's worth asking ourselves 5 times a day. Every time we have an emotional reaction to something, it's worth asking, who do I think I am being at this very moment? So today I'm part of because of one of the retreats I led, people have an email chain, so they write to each other, and somebody wrote to the group today saying that her mother, she was very happy about this, her mother said to her that all of a sudden that you don't have to carry the burden of worrying about my emotions anymore. That's quite a gift from a mother to an adult child, is, let it go. I'll take care of myself. Because she's been doing it all her life, looking after her parents emotionally. And so people congratulated on her on having that burden lifted off her shoulders. But somebody else in the group wrote in a dissenting opinion. And this person said, actually, your mother can't lift that burden from your shoulders. Only you can lift it. Because as long as she's lifting the burden off your shoulders, you still think you're a small child who is at the effect of your mother, who is under the emotional influence of what your mother may want or not want. So it's great that your mother said that to you. It shows growth in your relationship and in your mom, but it's totally up to you to lift that burden off your shoulders, that automatic and compulsive emotional caretaking that you've done towards your parents all your life. So, these self-beliefs that we have, I've already alluded to where they come from. And then, in my case, I talked about, it's the abandoned baby. That's my response when my wife is not there to pick me up at the airport.